So, Professor Sam, I think we can start now.
Right.
So,
Okay.
on behalf of the Africa Business School, we thank you for agreeing to speak in our virtual program, Voice of Research Excellence. I will introduce you. Actually, Professor Sam Sarpong is an associate professor school in the School of Economics Management at Zamian University in Malaysia. He is also a senior research fellow in the Department of Business, Competition Ecological Law Institute, Southwest State University in Russia. He holds a PhD from Cardiff University and an MBA from University of South Wales. So he is also a reviewer for many leading journals and also serves as an associate editor for the International Journal of Corporate Social Responsibility. So thank you, Professor Sam, for agreeing to speak in our virtual program, and the floor is yours.
Right. Thank you very much for the honor done to me by inviting me to your series of engagement for scholars. And I hope and pray that by the time I finish with my talk, in fact, it's an engagement, I must say. I want to engage you. And that is why I picked up this particular topic. I hope by the time I finish, you would be in a position to reflect soberly on some of the issues that I might touch on. Okay, so today, what I intend to do is for us to have a look at the pandemic that we know of. Okay, we're going to look at its implications for the UN Agenda 2030, which calls for action to end poverty, the protection of the planet, and also it signals a desire for people to enjoy peace and prosperity. How are we really going through this sort of thing? And what are the implications? The issues that I will be engaging in are quite manifold. Okay, so first I will try to explore the situation with the pandemic and then examine the sort of arrangements it's foisting on us. Okay, what sort of arrangements are we having because of this sort of pandemic? I'll then look at its impact on business and then try to decipher the role of marketing in all this. Okay, the issue is to see how the current situation can project marketing's role in business and how we can use marketing in a crisis situation. So what we're trying to do is to look at the pandemic in its entirety and then its implications for the UN Agenda 2030, and would also try to find out its impact on business. And in so doing, want to look at what role marketing could play in all this. So that would be the kind of arrangement that we're going to have in line with my presentation. Okay. Normally, when we have pandemics like this, there are so many issues in that regard. Okay. And it's important for us to have some sort of deep assessments to be made in order for us to really get to know how we can deal with the situation. If we were to look at what we experience at the moment, so many questions have been asked. What is it about? What is going to be the end result of all this? Are we going to be better off? Or are we going to have issues that could take years for us to contend with? Okay, so we can ask these questions because those are the questions that we have to engage with in the course of all this. Questions like, is COVID-19 shining a light on our underlying mindsets and behavior? Is it changing the way we are? What are we learning from this? Will we come out of this as a changed world and a world for the better? What are the deep lessons that we can take on board? Will these lessons ensure that we'll be better off in terms of what we do, in terms of how we see things? We could also ask a question like this: how can we get our communities and economies back on track? And in what condition can we have that? Answers to these are very, very, very important to us because we don't know. We don't have the clear answers to all this. And that is why it's important for us to reflect on all this as we go along. Would we be able to meet the measures of sustainability as a result of what is currently happening? How can businesses avail themselves of the opportunities with regard to the current situation? So clearly, there are a lot of unsolved issues. There are a lot of problems that we could have, and it's important for us to know how we could find solutions to all this, okay? And that is the mainstay of this particular talk that I want us to really engage ourselves in and with, okay? We all know what is happening at the moment. There's been a lot of conspiracy theories. We know about the fact that people have debated issues ranging from where the origins of this is from and so on and so forth. Okay, we've also talked about the prevalence and how lethal the whole thing is. Okay, now we have seen a lot of things, within this sort of arena that we've foisted on ourselves or what we have had. Okay, we've seen the incapacity of the healthcare systems in some countries. There is a total breakdown. We've seen market lockdowns. We've seen the inadequacy of other mitigation and containment strategies. There are so many things happening at the moment, okay, with regard to this pandemic, okay. So we've also seen the economic impact of this. And we have been able to know the political consequences, the social consequences, how families have lost their own relatives and so on and so forth. This clearly tells us the dimension of this sort of thing. So if the whole thing is so gloomy, how can we take opportunities from that? Is there anything that we can take on board from these happenings around us? So there are debates in that direction as well. In spite of the gloom nature of this sort of pandemic, there could be a light at the end of the tunnel. And that is what we would want to look at. And then also try to figure out what role marketing can play in that, especially in crisis conditions, when there are crises. What is the role of marketing in all that? So some of the things that we've been able to look at stems from the source of the crisis, where debates have always been raging on. Where does it come from? Who did what? And so on and so forth. Aside from that, we've also seen what humanity can do, okay? The fact that we have this sort of thing, the fact that they try to decimate the entire populace of certain places, we've also seen something very peculiar about it, humanity, the ethics of care, solidarity, people trying to help other people. It's something that humanity has been able to have as a result of this. And we've also tried to find a way to navigate the crisis and build a better and more sustainable world. Okay, that is something that has more to do with the sustainable development goals that we have already earmarked. Okay, we've also seen issues with regard to leadership. All right, some leaders have been quite erratic in terms of what they've done. Some leaders have been proactive, and therefore they've been able to do so well in the course of all this. And we are also talking about the economic approaches that can really ensure that we can spearhead development. What sort of considerations are we going to put into that? What are the things that we ought to do? Is there any blueprint that we can use in order to ensure that we can get our economies back to where they were or probably improve upon them? We've also been talking about inequalities in the system, in the societies. And the recent Black Lives Matter issues are part of all these things that have really got to a head. Now we're also talking about government and the obligations as well. So in spite of all the happenings around us, we are also taking on board certain things that we took for granted or certain things that we never ever really realized their importance. So it tells you that, look, whatever is happening, be it the gloom side of it, it could also pave the way for certain positive things that we could also look at, okay? And now what I want us to have some feel about is the fact that despite all these happenings, we are having something which is transformational, okay? That is what this sort of thing is trying to put to us, okay? And it's important for us to realize these 17 SDGs and how the pandemic is really having an impact on them, okay? So these are the 17 SDGs. First one, there shouldn't be any poverty at all, which is very, very difficult to really pursue. And then we have the second one, which is zero hunger. People shouldn't go hungry at all in this world. Then we have the good health and well-being, quality education, gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable, clean energy, decent work, and economic growth. We also have industry, innovation, and infrastructure. We can also talk about reduced inequalities, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption, and production. We can also talk about climate action, life below water, life on land, peace, justice, and strong institutions, and partnerships for the goals. Some of these things are very difficult to come by, but I can tell you that in the course of all these happenings around us, there are certain aspects which we've been able to meet in some, even though they might be inadequate. But it tells you that given a certain kind of situation, we can really ensure that we could fulfill the ambitions of all these 17 SDGs. Okay. When we talk about no poverty, for instance, that is a tough call. It's not something that can be fulfilled, but we can work towards that. When we talk about zero hunger, at the same time, we can also work within this framework of that, okay? Good health and well-being, things are happening. Now we've seen the inequalities in the system. Governments have realized that they need to do more for their citizens, and that is quite a compelling thing, okay? Quality education, what are we experiencing now? Now we're having these online sessions and all that. And advocates of this say it's opened the doors for a lot of people who otherwise wouldn't have had the opportunity to do that. It's still debatable, but then there is something happening in the course of this. Gender equality, it's also an area which is a little bit debatable, but we've realized that what is happening is we've seen women at the forefront of these sort of issues, okay? Nurses, women generally, and those at home, they are doing their work very well, okay? They are at the front line, at the same time, they are at home, okay? Doing their very best in the sense that they are also creating a basis for us to appreciate what they do. Clean water and sanitation, it's also a tough call, okay? A very difficult task to accomplish at the moment. But since the pandemic, a lot of governments have realized the need to provide their citizens with good drinking water. And in some countries, people are not paying for water for a considerable period. I know in some African countries like Nigeria, they've been asked not to pay water so that they can use water freely in order to ensure that the outbreak wouldn't really intensify, okay? And in terms of sanitation, a lot of things are happening. Places are being fumigated, and that tells you that there is something happening, okay? And in terms of affordable, affordable and clean energy, okay? Not so much has been done in that direction, but what we can say is that electricity costs, all right, have been borne by the government in some countries as well. So it tells you that governments are realizing how vulnerable a lot of their people are, and therefore they are prepared to put in place the requisite measures in order to ensure that people would be able to have what it takes to really be what they want to be, okay? And then in terms of decent work and economic growth, in terms of that, we might talk about the fact that these stimulus economic packages can really ensure that, there will be a very good drive towards the economy. It's geared towards ensuring that all these sectors which were affected by the pandemic can restart and then ensure that they drive the economies wherever they are, okay? And then industry innovation and infrastructure, we've seen what happened or what is happening, and the fact that a lot of people have tried as much as possible to develop their research, okay, in order to come by certain items which are quite necessary during this time of the pandemic, okay? So all these instances, are a reflection of what can be done and also what ought to be done. So we can say for sure that in spite of the gloom nature of the pandemic, it also has occasioned the desire for people to do something extraordinary. Okay. We can also talk about the reduced inequalities. Okay. I'm not too sure whether that has been accomplished, but then the point is sometimes we can see efforts being made towards that end. Sustainable cities and communities, it's something that could also be worked on. We've seen the solidarity, okay, people trying to help their neighbors and so on and so forth, communities coming together to share whatever they have. All right. Responsible consumption and production. At the moment, a lot is not happening, and people have also realized that there is a need for the circular economy, which is to say that it's really dawned on people that it's so important for them to use waste to generate wealth. Okay. Climate action, we know what is happening. Pollution is at its lowest, and it's also affected how we, the way climate issues are discussed as well. Okay, no more, not much pollutants in the environment. We can see the before and after pictures of places like India. We've seen them. Italy, we've seen how things have changed and so on and so forth. The few ones that we have out there, um, I don't think we've been able to really do much in terms of what they are supposed to mean. But then the point is, life below water, it also has to do with pollution. Now that pollution is at its lowest ebb, there's not much in terms of anything that can really destroy um, our water and things in that regard. Life on land, I think that we are also doing our very best in terms of how we are trying to live a life worth living. Peace, justice, and strong institutions, it's something that people can also work on. And we've seen all these agitations all over the world. People want justice, people want things to do. I mean, people want to be in an environment where they can exercise their rights, in an environment where there are strong institutions which they can use should they fall foul of the law, and so on and so forth. People want democratic institutions. People want strong institutions that can ensure that they are able to provide them with all the things they might need. And then the final one that we can also talk about is the partnerships for goals. And this is the kind of collaborations that we've seen in the last few months or so. People coming together, sharing whatever they have, collaborative ventures taken up in so many instances and so on and so forth. We've seen companies which are very fierce rivals coming together as well to really collaborate and then ensure that they produce for humanity to use in this particular climate. So that speaks volumes of what is happening. Okay. Even though we've not been able to achieve so much in terms of the goals that have been set out there, there is a drive towards that. And that is quite remarkable because prior to that, we never experienced some of these things. And it's important for us to realize how this also impacts on businesses as well. Okay. But before we do that, there are standalone pillars that I was able to find out in the course of my work on this particular topic. What I've been able to observe is human resilience, okay? Here is a situation where people are trying as much as possible to put aside the negativity, right? To become very strong in their communities, to ensure that they do what they think they ought to do, things that can drive them, right? Things that can really ensure that they can live off much more than they are experiencing. So the resilience is creating a basis for mankind to be able to coordinate certain activities, which is always good for us to do. So humanity, yes, community engagement, solidarity, things like this have been happening since the pandemic came up. And then we can also talk about innovation as well, people trying to, provide certain things which are in short supply, factories springing up overnight to produce these things. Okay, more companies join forces together to be in a position to produce certain things which are very important at the moment. We've also seen leadership, okay? We've seen the bad side of leadership. We've also seen what good leadership is all about. So clearly, these are the pillars that I've been able to know or find in the course of all these happenings around us. Resilience, humanity, innovation, and then leadership. Key areas that I believe are the standalone pillars that we can use as a basis for any kind of discussion. So what are the deeper lessons from this? What is it teaching us at all? What is this crisis doing to us? What are we learning? To me, I believe strongly that it's really helping us to become connected, okay, in terms of what we do. We are now seeing what humanity is all about, okay? And we are also being, we are in a situation where we have become quite transformative in terms of what we can do and what we can't do. But here the emphasis is on what we can do, which is very important in the sense that now we have realized that we can do so much in case we decide to collaborate, in case we decide to pursue certain objectives in life, okay? So, what is happening to business in terms of the happenings around us? We can see that a lot of businesses have realized that they need to act and act very quickly, or else they'll be left behind. Okay, that is why businesses ought to become quite agile. They need to change business models so that they can be in a position to work through whatever they have. If you don't change your business model, you'll be left behind because things are changing very rapidly. And it's important for businesses to know what they ought to do in order to fall in line with the present happenings. Okay, so it's also important for us to set up remote work arrangements. That is the order of the day. You can't be in your mortar, kind of your four, square room and then be doing so much, or be trying to work through that. Now it's important for you to know that you need to set up your remote work arrangements, which will be very vital for any kind of service that you provide. Offshoring entire business processes are also something that can be done in the course of all this. Then initiating multi-company cooperation to redeploy felon employees is also important. All these things are being done in order to ensure that business can stay in business, okay? That businesses can still be there. And at the same time, they are being created or being made in order to ensure that businesses can gain the favor of people. People want to know what businesses can do at this moment, okay? And how you do things will reflect how people perceive you. And that is very crucial, all right? If you sack all your workers, people will know how you are like. If you try to help your community, people will know how you are. And therefore, when things normalize, they might have a very deep affection for you. So clearly, people are looking through all these things. People are going through so many things, trying to figure out how companies can react to this particular thing. So what is marketing's role in all this? That is a crucial question that we need to ask ourselves. When we talk about marketing, we are talking about the integration. Marketing integrates all the functions of a business, and therefore it's important for marketing to have a very deep role in this, okay? So what marketing does will be very, very crucial at this moment, okay? And it's important for us to realize that marketing is an effective way of engaging customers. It also helps build and maintain companies' reputation, okay? It also helps in creating a basis for us to have a relationship, okay, between a business and its customers. It's also there to maintain relevance. So it speaks volumes of what marketing is all about. Without marketing, it becomes very difficult for you to really pursue any kind of objective which has the customer in mind. So marketing's role is very crucial at this point in time. But how we ensure that marketing plays its role will be very crucial as well. And we've seen a lot of companies, okay, which are able or trying as much as possible to ensure that they can fall in line with the present happenings. Tesla, for instance, decided to make ventilators, which was quite a very good thing to do. Okay, it's outside its core competence, but then it's decided to do that. And in so doing, it gained the favor of a lot of people. It shows that the company is doing something in order to help mankind. It is very, very important at this stage, okay? So with all these happenings, we know the world has now come to a point where some people in companies are now doing what is appropriate for humanity. And that is what a lot of people want to see. People want companies to really find themselves as corporate citizens, okay? They want companies to be part of the communities in which they are in. They want companies to do as much as possible to rein in certain things which societies would want to have. And that is the kind of thing that would ensure that people will perceive you in a particular limelight, okay, when this pandemic goes away. Right. Having said this, because I'm trying to go through this in a very short while so that we can be able to ask a lot of questions. And I believe that as I go through this, you might have a series of questions lined up for me. Okay. So, what are the common grounds for business and communities? We are talking about how communities look up to businesses in time of need and at this very crucial time. What is happening to businesses? What is the kind of relationship between business and communities? Okay. What we can say for sure is that people now keep watch over which companies are stepping up at this time and also those ones which are failing society. That is the key thing at the moment. What is this company doing to help us in our time of need? What is this company trying to do? Okay, and that is the kind of thing that people will take along even after the pandemic is over. The kind of perception they might have about a particular company. If you get rid of all your workers, they might see you in a different kind of situation, a different, kind of climate. And it's important for us to work through this in order for us to know how we can still pursue our objectives after the pandemic is over. So the decisions businesses make today will define them well after this sort of crisis, this sort of period that we are experiencing. And this reinforces the importance of leading with integrity, honesty, compassion, and ultimately pursuing objectives which lie much in societal needs or interests. That is a key thing when it comes to corporate social responsibility. What are we doing to help society at this point in time? Okay, so that it's very important at this point. It's important for us to ensure that companies can do so well to have communities seeing the good side of them as well. There have been talk about the fact that there is no morality in the marketplace, but this is the opportune time for businesses to show how compassionate they are. This is the time for businesses to tell the world that profits making is not the end of it all, but then it's all about values. And that is a key point for companies to really reflect on. And it has to do with how you market yourself, how you do things in the community's interest. And that is why marketing is so crucial at this point in time. So concerns about and the need for CSR, corporate social responsibility, have grown significantly during the past decades. And the current situation, to some extent, makes a case for that. It's absolutely clear. This is the time that companies should really let communities see their value. This is the time that you can really make amends for any issues, any problems you might have had with communities. And it's the time for these businesses to really tell communities how they can really cater for them as well. So one of the core components of CSR is about putting a human face on business entities by communicating empathy, having an understanding, and supporting for societal concerns. As a company, what are we doing for these communities in which we operate in and from? Is it the case that we are not doing so much for them? Now that these communities will be looking up to us, that is a key moment that we have to show what we are capable of doing. The fact that we can serve the community and serve the community very, very well. So now let's take a look into how we can be able to maintain and even grow our business during this pandemic. Is it possible to do that? What is a blueprint for doing that? It's all about capitalizing on opportunities. There is an opportunity anywhere you find yourself. It's all about trying to figure out what you can do and whether you can pursue that particular objective. Okay? So, what can we do? Even in spite of all these difficulties, we can have something out there that we can capitalize on. We can use the internet, okay, for the purposes of our business, marketing, institutions, companies can ensure that they do that. We can also maintain and build and grow our business relationship, because at the end of it all, it's all about relationships. The kind of relationship that we have with our customers, that is the key thing for our businesses to grow. If we don't have any meaningful relationship with our customers, then we are not going to make any meaningful, we are not going to really impress upon them in any way whatsoever. We need to set the tone for how customers perceive our brands, okay, in these difficult times. And that is why we need to engage customers. How do we engage them? It's all about doing the right things for them. It's all about creating a base for them to appreciate what we can do. Sometimes what happens is that these customers are able to know a lot about our activities. And therefore, when we do anything at all, we need to ensure that what we do forms part of what the expectations could be like. So marketers must adapt their messages to reflect the on-the-ground realities whilst staying true to the brand's values. Okay, so we need also to adapt to the marketing plan. Marketing is something that will be the driving force for all operations. And that is why we need that sort of relationship. Okay, relationship marketing, creating the basis for people to know, okay, that you are there for them, that you take their interest into consideration, that you are there to satisfy whatever needs they might have. That is the kind of thing marketers should do at this point in time. And that is the kind of thing that researchers should find out in order to really come out with certain things that would generate the kind of leads that they would want to have. Right. Having talked about everything with regard to the COVID-19 issue and its implications, and then zeroing in on what marketing's role is and should be. Now let's find out how we can forge ahead with all these issues, okay? All over us. We need to find out the deeper lessons that we can have or find or know from this pandemic. And then also be in a position to know how we can reflect soberly on them. Is there anything that we need to take on board at all? What has the crisis reinforced? Interdependence? Then we need to look at that very critically, okay? What has it brought to us? Sustainability issues? How do we work as a business concern? Do we have to avoid pollution? How do we do that? How do we ensure that our wastes can be used to generate wealth at all? So there are deeper lessons for us to look at. There are so many things that we need to look at. The before and after pictures that we saw about places like India, Italy, and so on and so forth, speak volumes of how industries are polluting the earth. What will be our response to these things? And what is marketing going to do in the line of all these happenings around us? So it's important for us as marketers to take a deep, kind of reflection upon all these issues that have come before us and all the issues that could come before us, and then try to mount appropriate responses to them. Right. I hope you've really, I've taken you on a journey which has really taxed you, okay, tapped into your intellect, and therefore you could might want to ask questions in line with that. I'm ready for any question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. So the audience, if they have any question, they can ask the professor directly. So I think Kautar has a question.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Sam, for your presentation. I'm Kautar. I'm a PhD in ABS. So my first question is related to impact investing on SDGs. How impact investment will be influenced by coronavirus?
Sorry, I didn't hear the last bit of what you said. Can you repeat that, please?
Yeah. So how impact investment will be influenced by the coronavirus, but by
How,
the COVID-19 crisis?
how
On
the
SDGs.
partnership?
No, investment on to contribute to SDGs.
Investments. Now we are promoting circular economy. And what we are trying to say is that if you have wastes, there are ways by which you can treat them in order to generate wealth. Okay, so investing in these areas are issues that people really want to, and you can have people who are so passionate about some of these ideas. Okay, so you can invest in this area, and these are the areas that can really ensure that you have much more in terms of your profits as well, because you have people who are particularly so much against excessive consumption and so on and so forth. So in terms of your investment, all right, that can be used in certain areas where you might have people who are really passionate about them. Okay?
Yeah.
Did I answer the question if I heard you right?
Yeah, I wanted to know if it's like the crisis will influence in a big way the investment because for Africa, for example, the continent used to get like many investments from us outside the continent. So in the time of the crisis, many countries are not able to sustain their own activities. So it might have like a big influence on many countries who got investment from others.
Yes, that is a possibility. And so what is happening is that you have a lot of countries coming in with this economic, stimulation thing, stimulus, sorry, thing, in order to spearhead development within their countries. They've realized that things will be very difficult for them, and therefore what they are doing is that they all have these economic stimulus, arrangements packages, so that businesses could be able to, I mean, come on board, be able to deliver as and when things improve. Okay, because without that support, it will be very difficult for countries like African countries, for instance. Even these developed countries are suffering. Okay, the
Yes, yeah.
UK, for instance, is seriously in recession. There are a lot of happenings. They can't even pay people who have applied to be on these unemployment benefits, and therefore taxes would have to be raised as well. So they wouldn't come in and then be spending on other countries at all. It tells you. Now what we're experiencing, we can even know about the fact that airlines are getting rid of their pilots. So it tells you, it speaks volumes of how businesses are being run at the moment, how businesses are trying to shed off excess labor, probably in order to ensure that they become quite sustainable in terms of what they do. So there
Mhm.
could be problems. It will be very difficult, really, for investment to start off quite strongly at this point in time. But those who have the eye for things, they can work through them if the need arises. They can know where they need to go to, and then ensure that they make something out of where they are.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Yeah, yeah, sure.
So what is the situation in Morocco? Are you experiencing any kind of difficulties since this pandemic became um,
Any,
came up?
anyone? Sorry, anyone?
What I'm trying to find out is the situation in Morocco. Is
Mhm.
it something that was really quite of note?
For Morocco, they try to create a fund to 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 to,
Yes, I think a
to
lot of countries decided to do that. What they did was to try to create funds so that people could pay into that and then use that. Okay,
yeah, yeah.
but the gravity of this pandemic is such that aside from that, you might need external support in order to carry on with your business activities and so on and so forth. So it's not a problem, okay?
Yes,
And
it
it
is.
might take a while before the economy can receive that sort of boost in order to ensure that there'll be a lot of things happening within countries. But for now, things look a little bit gloom, but it shouldn't be that gloomy at all. There could be opportunities available, and therefore people with that kind of, mindset would be able to look up and then know exactly which areas they need to invest.
Like, I think countries, from what I've heard, like, I'm not sure about it, but like countries are trying to lower the impact of this economic recession. They've got some lessons from the 2008 crisis, and they are trying to mitigate the risk related, even though the risk related to the COVID-19 must be the risks are higher in the COVID-19 crisis more than the 2008 economic crisis.
And I think that it also tells us one thing. Things that happen elsewhere can affect you, okay, in a manner that could be very, 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 it can really create a lot of problems for you, okay? And these things are things that nobody foresaw, probably, okay? And even if you foresaw that, how prepared could you have been in the said circumstances? Look at the airlines. They've struggled for some time now because of all this. And to hear about, established airlines like Emirates getting rid of their pilots, it speaks volumes of what is happening. Okay? Just getting rid of them. It tells you how this pandemic has really affected them. And they put in every marketing effort. Look, they've tried all these loyalty, programs. They've tried everything. They've tried to create the basis for people to come back. Okay? But then there are other things affecting, the operations as well, which they can't really, have any stranglehold on. But apart from that, even trying all these marketing efforts, you realize that things will never, go their way quite easily at all. Okay, so that is the kind of thing that we're experiencing.
As a professor of sorry, I have another question. Like, as a professor in marketing, how is innovation like in marketing? Because I'm kind of interested in innovation. I want to know how do you innovate in marketing? If you can just tell about it.
Okay, in terms of being innovative, it's more to do with, in terms of marketing, you would have to find out, you need to research, you need to know what people really want, because at the end of the day, it's all about customers. So it should be customer focused. What is the situation with customers? You can only get that through the internal databases that you might find if you're into production, if you produce, for any for the company, for any company. You could also have that through the market intelligence, all right? And then you can also have that through any research that you conduct, okay? And being innovative means that you take into account so many factors. It's not about what happens within your immediate environment. You have to really connect with people. And how do you connect with people? You have to be abreast, okay, with what is happening. Digital marketing, try to figure out what people are doing, use influencers, and so on and so forth. Okay, now marketing has gone beyond the traditional means. Now it's more about digital marketing, trying to create the basis for you to know what people really like, what they like, how they like it, and so on and so forth. So there's so much to do in case you want to be on top of your game. Okay, developing that kind of relationship is also important. How do you ensure that people would really like you? How do you ensure that people will really like your brand? What do you have to do in order to ensure that your brand stands out? It's all about differentiation. Where are you? Look at your key competitors. Do something quite different from what they are doing. Let people see you as quite different. And if you're able to do that, then people would really know you for what you are.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor
Thank you
Sam.
too.
Yeah, thank you.
Professor, thank you, Professor Sam, for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
My first question is about airlines companies. How
Right.
do you think they can overcome this crisis? And in a marketing way, how they can overcome this crisis, and what are the marketing things they have to use to overcome this crisis?
Right. I've also tried finding out what they could do in the same circumstances. If you look at what they've been doing, I've been going through all the things that Emirates, okay, what they're doing, TAP Portugal, everything. And they seem to be doing the same thing. If you have something that people can replicate easily, then you've not done anything quite meaningful. It's the same thing. Loyalty cards, programs, okay? We sanitize our thing before people come in. Is there anything that they could do differently that would ensure that people would want to really see for sure that, look, what we are going to experience will be different from what the other competitors are doing? So far, I have not seen anything at all. And at this moment, it's so difficult for people to travel as well. Okay. A particular country can open its doors, its skies for people to travel, but then where are you going to if other countries have not opened their skies? Okay. So there is a problem with the airlines. They are struggling, and the worst is yet to come. Okay. I believe that they've done everything that they need to do. Okay, they've tried to develop that kind of relationship with passengers. Okay, if you bought your ticket some time ago, you still can use it, and all the airlines are saying the same thing. We have the best. Okay, we've tried everything. We sanitize our cabins and all that. All airlines are saying is singing from the same hymn book. Is there anything that they can do differently to ensure that people join them, or for people to use their services? At this moment, I don't think so.
Until
If
now, I didn't get a refund from my tickets. I have bought 2 tickets from Turkish Airlines, and I didn't get a refund till now. I think
oh,
they're struggling with this.
then that is a bad airline, because all the airlines are refunding. All the airlines are refunding. So if Turkish is not doing that, next time don't travel with them.
Okay.
That is what is going to happen. People will try to figure out which airlines are doing the very best for them. So if you go through that sort of experience, I don't think next time you would want to travel with Turkish Airlines.
Yes. And
So that is the kind of thing that now airlines should do. Other than that, it's not going to be easy for them at all.
yes. And if they raise the prices after this crisis, how can they tell this to the customers so they won't get upset or?
I don't think that would be it will be a very good thing to do at this point in time. Know that people don't have the money in the first instance. And the fact that, look, now most airlines would not increase. I know for sure they wouldn't do that, because if they were to do that, that would be very bad for them, for their reputation. Okay, people don't have the means to travel. They don't have the edge to travel. They cannot travel. But if they want to go elsewhere, it's important for you to really find a way to get them to do that, rather than to increase the prices of the tickets that you have. It's not a very good thing. I believe that airlines are going to lose for the next 2-3 years, okay, until they stabilize a while. But now, if you were to increase your price, that wouldn't be a good thing for you. People will just leave you. They go elsewhere. And that is what we all do. We look out for cheap tickets, okay? Because we wouldn't want to go to places where we're going to spend so much, okay?
Yes,
That
yes.
is why the loyalty program doesn't work with a lot of airlines.
Is this gonna be like the end of low cost airlines like Ryanair?
They are really struggling. They are really struggling, okay? And now we've seen what is happening to Virgin Atlantic. We've seen what is happening to a lot of these low-cost ones. Just went into administration in the UK. Yes,
Mhm.
okay. But even a bigger, airline like Virgin Atlantic, look at how they are suffering. And even Emirates, of all airlines, getting rid of pilots. It tells you what is happening within the airline industry, In fact, the entire service industry has suffered so much. You go to hotels, you won't find people in there. Okay, you won't find people, and they've really relieved all these workers. They've gotten rid of them.
Yes.
Okay, so it's a very difficult situation that we all find ourselves in. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have
I
a
think
question.
hello.
Yes.
Yeah, Malukili has the question.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Hello, Mr. Sam.
Hello.
Welcome at Business School. I'm Iman Lukili, a PhD student at Africa Business School, UM6B. In fact, I have 3 questions.
Right.
My first question is concerns businesses and their business models. So for businesses, in your opinion, how to prepare for their businesses for a post-pandemic era? In other words, what type of, let's say, of business models should businesses adopt in the post-pandemic so as not to left behind in the future? This is my first question.
Okay, let me answer the first question. Before I forget,
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
We can't have a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. Okay, it depends on what your objectives are. It depends on your mission. What do you want to do? Okay, and that is the first step of knowing exactly what you can do. All right. To tell you that there is a model out there for you to use, that can't really help you. It's all about what you stand for and what you stand to gain from your activities. Okay. For instance, somebody can tell you that, okay, as an airline, these are the steps that you need to take. Make sure you have a very good relationship with, passengers. Make sure you sanitize your cabins. Make sure your tickets are cheap. That is all. It can work in some instance, and it wouldn't work in some instance. Why is it like that? Because you can't have a situation where one model can really be set for the purposes of whatever all the airlines are doing. Is there any model out there that can ensure that you'll be different from your key competitors, that can really give you the kind of support that you could have? Okay. All these airlines, they've done everything in their power, right? It's not so much about them. Sometimes it's also about the authorities. You might have a blueprint. This is the kind of thing I'm going to do. You should think about the environment as well. You need to think about government policies. You need to find out, okay, both internal and external, issues that can really, push you to somewhere. And that is why it's important for you to be proactive every time. Don't ever be reactive, okay? Try to figure out what could happen to you and then mount the responses to them. Sometimes you can't, like this pandemic. It's difficult. It's something that came about and that was it. No matter how you plan towards certain crisis, you can't really do much. And that is one thing we need to know. Right? Second question.
Yes, yeah, I got it. Thank you. Thank you. My second question concerns leadership models and types. In your point of view, what sort of leadership models or types can help CEOs sustain their businesses in the future?
Yes. When this crisis occurred, a lot happened. And leadership was one of the key things, okay? Leadership in business and leadership in government, okay? In terms of business, the way some companies went about it, in terms of the fact that they were able to keep some of their workers, other workers were sacked, and so on and so forth. So that tells you the kind of leadership that can groom, that can ensure that people would appreciate what they do. Okay, and when we talk about leadership, it encompasses a lot of things. It's a means by which you can be able to know, okay, look into the future, try to figure out what ought to be done for your company. It's a means by which you might have the wherewithal, right, to be able to work your way through when you have a crisis. How you manage a crisis will be very crucial as well. Okay? When we turn to government, we know what happened. We had some erratic leadership from some countries, and look at the mess that they now find themselves in. I don't want to move into politics, but it's important for us to talk about these things because we are all, involved in all this. Where leadership was very strong, they were able to contain this pandemic, this sort of problem. And where leadership acted as a fickle, we know what happened as well. We know what happened in the UK, we know what happened in the US. But in places where they took the opportunity to do so well, they were able to manage the process. So leadership is important. A leader is somebody who can come out in times of crisis to do what is expected of him or her. Somebody who can really command respect. Somebody who can do so well in order to galvanize people to do what they should do. But when you have somebody who doesn't really, have that kind of substance, it becomes very difficult for the person to do so well. Okay?
Okay. Yes. My third question,
Right?
it's about your point of view, of course, concerning SDGs. You
Okay.
mentioned
Yes.
SDGs in your presentation.
Yes.
So do you think that certain goals already set up should be reset up or reviewed or let's say changed for the sake of humanity in the post-pandemic time?
Sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't get the last bit.
For concerning SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals.
Goals, yes.
Yeah. Do you think that certain goals that already set up should be reset up or reviewed or let's say changed for the sake of humanity and of course businesses and all the people in the world, mankind, in the post-pandemic time?
I should believe that the responses may not be adequate, okay? Some of them might not be fulfilled. That is what I believe. But despite that, they mark a considerable shift from the pre-COVID-19 era. What I can say for sure is that whilst all the goals cannot be fulfilled as of now, the shift towards the accomplishment, in a sense, is quite remarkable. Okay? When we talk about inequalities, it dawned on us. People have realized that there's so much inequalities in the system. People have realized that it's important, to attain peace. When this pandemic, came about, warring factions, went into ceasefires. They stopped. Okay? And that is one remarkable thing about this. Okay? I'm not saying that it's over, but at least we saw, the essence of all this. Okay? That people realize that, look, you can't fight during a period like that. Now people have realized that they need to fight for justice. And that is what we are experiencing. Black Lives Matter. And that is what we are experiencing. People have really realized that, look, until such time that they are given their freedom, then they cannot really be seen or be marked as such, as citizens of the countries. And the fight is on. It's going to affect institutions as well, okay? There's going to be, I believe strongly that there could be strong institutions that can come into the fore as a result of the present happenings, okay? There are so many things in there that we cannot fulfill. I don't know why they set that goal so high in some instance, like there shouldn't be poverty. Poverty would always be with us. Poverty would always be with us. What is important is for us to reduce that, to find a middle path, to ensure that governments are really, doing their very best in societies. We want a situation where people can feel that, look, they've been able to get, a meal a day, if not 2-3 meals a day. In some communities, you can't have a situation where people could even have 1 square meal a day. But now it's dawning on governments. Okay, governments have realized that they need to do so well for their community, for their people. And people are agitating for reforms. People are crying for more reforms within societies. Okay, and that is a good thing. I always say that. And the fact that people came together, people were checking on their neighbors, when this crisis was at its peak, just to find out whether they have any means of, they have any food in there. It shows how humanity, was given a huge boost eventually. At least people realize that, look, humans can really, really do so well. And the collaborations, businesses collaborating together, having that kind of fulfillment, doing things together in order to come up with something that can really serve as an important thing for the communities. It's a step ahead, a bright thing to do. Very brilliant.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so hi, my name is Nisreen, and I'm a PhD candidate at ABS.
Okay.
Thank you for your presentation and your time. Actually, I have 2 questions. The first one is quite related to what you were saying. So the question was about a little bit fashion, but not really fashion, since some businesses emerged with the confinement, like businesses selling and marketing fancy masks and somehow expensive ones. So as a marketing specialist, do you think that this is allowed in a business in a point of view of business opportunity seekers? Or is this just meaning that those people didn't learn anything from this experience and this pandemic? Actually, this was the first question. And
I'm not too sure whether I heard you well. Are you asking about the cost of items? Can you repeat what you said, please?
Yes, sure. So once the deconfinement started, we have seen that a lot of businesses started selling fancy and expensive masks, like to go out,
Okay.
to get protection from coronavirus once you go out. Okay?
Yes.
So is this meaning, like, for you as a marketing specialist, or is this meaning that just as business opportunity seekers, it's allowed and ethically acceptable? Or is this just meaning, in your point of view, that those people didn't got it right from the pandemic and the COVID-19 experience?
If I heard you right, what you're trying to ask is whether it was an opportunity for people to start, manufacturing these masks. Is that right?
Yes, and is it actually ethical or no? And what is your point of view?
I would say that is an innovative, kind of spirit that came up. Okay. Here's a situation where people began to design these masks. Okay. All right. You had a situation where factories were springing up in so many places. And what they did was to really create, something quite fashionable, something that you needed to put on. At the same time, something that people could be compelled to use. Okay. And I got to know that some of them were very expensive, the imported ones. And therefore, when people started producing the locally made ones, it's really helped the entire society. At least people needed to really have something that could protect them. And if the government or the state was unable to provide them or buy, these imported ones, then why don't you really ensure that local companies can pursue that? That was an opportunity for, businesses to do that. And what I knew or got to know was that people were doing this in the comfort of their rooms, okay, which was an indication of the fact that they were also able to see an opportunity, and then they took advantage of it.
Okay, thank you. So the
Thank
second question is, because of the confinement, etc., a lot of work and business adaptations have proven their efficiency, like remote work in some specific sectors and within some teams. And by projection, the new marketing theories and like new tools, etc., emerged. Do you think that this will disrupt the post-COVID way of working and doing business, and also marketing products and services, or it's just due to the current situation, and after that everything will go back to the normal?
Marketing is being, you need to adapt. It's not so much about something which is static. No, it's about adapting to certain conditions, certain situations. And that is the hallmark of marketing, okay? It's not about you trying to stick to one particular thing and then thinking that that is going to save you from any happenings around you. No. It's all about adapting. What is happening to you? Look at the happenings around you and then try to find a common ground. Is there anything that I can do in order to be able to sustain whatever I'm doing? That is a key question you need to ask yourself.
Yes,
am I doing the right? Sorry?
The question was post-COVID, like after the end of this pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Is this pandemic like we were obliged to all the businesses and all people were obliged to adapt themselves to the COVID situation and the confinement, etc. But do you think that after like post-COVID crisis, things are going to go back to normal? Like, for example, we are going to drop out, like stop remote work, or are we going to adopt it as a new way of work, etc.? I'm just trying to get your point of view about what will happen post-COVID.
Right. It opens up a lot of possibilities. Okay. I cannot really give you a very straight answer to this. But what I can say is that it's opened up a lot of avenues for all of us. And that is the kind of thing that we need to look at. We reflect on all these things. Okay. For instance, online teaching. Is it something that you'd want to do after this period?
For me, no.
No, me too. I don't want to do it. That is the kind of thing that we have to look at. That is a debate that comes with this sort of event, this sort of, happening. Okay. After all this, we need to look at ourselves and find out, is there anything that we can do much better? Are we going to be engrossed in the same situation? Is this something that we want to do? I don't like online teaching. No. I would want to be in the classroom and then enjoy that kind of interaction. But if we are going to stay like this, then it's going to be a problem for me. And that is why I'm saying that anything can, because in my case, for instance, if you appear before me and you tell me that you did your program online, I would always think that that was an inferior thing that you did. Okay? All right? And therefore, I want people to have that classroom feeling. Okay? So let's assume that this thing goes away. What is going to happen to our educational system? I'm sure we'll go back to what we are very much familiar with. It's not like we have to, be there and do whatever we've been doing for the past few months. No. But it also adds up to what we can do. So the question is there anything positive that we can really take from what we did previously? Okay. That is a question that we can add to what we probably would want to do. So it's always something that we can reflect on and then find a common ground, a means by which we could probably add a little bit of it or whatever it is to it. Prior to this, I wasn't using Microsoft Teams. No, I never ever used it. No. But now look at me. I'm using Microsoft Teams. I have to use Zoom. I have to use Skype and so on and so forth. Okay. And that is too much because anytime any student can call you, anytime.
Yes.
But if I go to class 2 hours, 3 hours, it's over, I finish, I come back, and that's it.
Okay.
So there are issues out here, and we need to reflect on them to find out whether we can really want to use them or not.
Okay, thank you again for your answers
Thank
and
you.
your time.
I hope I've been able to answer that for you.
No problem, sir. I'm Umayma. I'm PhD student from MS. So my question is about the CS. Do you think that CS are maybe not
Oh, the line is
department
very
now
bad.
for the companies?
Hello? It's breaking.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Hear you.
Can now?
Hello?
Hello. Can you?
Yes, I can hear you now. No. No.
Umayma, please type your question in the chat so we can read it, and because your voice is breaking.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, Tina, go ahead.
So, thank you very much, Prof, for your presentation.
Thank you.
So my first question is related to the marketing strategy of hotels in this pandemic time. I mean, no flights means no tourists. So what can hotels do in order to incite national tourism, knowing that, for example, here in Morocco, the majority of hotels, especially luxurious hotels, used to target foreign tourists more than local tourists.
So the question is, hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, please, can you go over what you said? I want to understand what you said. Yes.
Yes, my question is related to the marketing strategy that hotels need to review in this pandemic time. For example, because no flights means that there will be no foreign tourists.
Yes.
So, what can hotels do in order to incite national tourism? Because, for example, here in Morocco, the majority of hotels used to target foreign tourists more than local tourists.
Yes. That is a dilemma. Two places where tourism is really at its, it's a major force in terms of what it brings to the economy. At this moment, there's nothing they can do. All these hotels, there's nothing. In the first place, we need to find out when, the airspace will be opened. We don't even know. And if they are opened and other countries have not opened theirs, it tells you that they cannot come in. Okay? So unless we have a very, a way by which all countries will be able to open up their economies, all countries will be be able to, do things in accordance with in accordance with other countries as well, so that we can have a tailor-made kind of approach to this. But the hotel service, the hotel industry is really in a mess because one, it works in tandem with the airlines, and so on and so forth. And
yes, it's
all
actually
these happenings have
affected
really impacted severely on them. Okay, and that is where no matter what you put in, if people are not coming, there's nothing you can do. And that is a bad side of it all. So the question is, if you operate a hotel, now you need to know that there could be bad times. And that is why you should be more focused in terms of what you do. Okay? We never know what could happen to us. And that is why we always have to, be in a position to try things out. Even if you have a chain of hotels, why don't you try other things alongside that? If you put all your eggs in one basket, that is the problem where you might have. Okay? I'm not saying you need to do that, but sometimes it helps to try some other, opportunities elsewhere. Okay? Because things could be very bad. And that is what we're experiencing at the moment. There's no way out. When you don't have people, you can't operate. When people are not coming in. And I've heard stories about, even in the UK, they were about to close a zoo, okay, because people were not coming over. and then they got support from a charity. Other than that, they might have probably killed all the animals. It tells you what people are really into now. And even if people think it's over, there are people who might fear that they could have this sort of thing should they mingle with people. So it's a very dicey situation. It's a very difficult time, and it takes a lot of guts to really work your way through at this point in time.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
Thank you too.
Also, another question: how can companies in general keep communicating about their products, knowing that a lot of clients cannot afford it now? So how can they communicate about their products without being offensive to their clients?
In terms of what they sell?
Yes, because there are some clients that cannot afford these products anymore because of the crisis.
And if you have a product which people are not buying, what happens to you? You can't make money. And that is why you need to rethink about your pricing system, okay?
Yes.
You also need to have a presence, okay, in terms of, having a presence online. That would help. I don't know whether you are aware of Primark. It's in the UK.
Yes.
It had no online presence. So when all the shops were shut, it couldn't make anything. It couldn't operate at all. But you have a situation where firms which have online presence are doing a lot of work, a lot of business. Okay, so things are changing. And when things change, you have to change with the times as well. That is what business is all about. I keep saying that you can't be static. You can't just sit down and think that the model that you've been using should be the model that you ought to use every time. No. Change with the times. Know what people want. Where do people get their inspiration from? Where do people buy from? E-commerce? Are there platforms where you can sell whatever you have? You can even sell, on a very large scale if you reduce your prices. And that is one of the things that businesses should look at. It's not so much about the cost of your, the profits that you need to make. Sometimes it's about trying to get people to buy from you. And therefore, when you reduce your prices, you stand a chance of having your items being bought. Okay? And that is what a lot of these companies are doing. I don't know whether you've heard about this company, Lidl. It's a German company, and it operates in a number of countries. And what it does is that it's a low cost, its strategy is to sell at a very cheap rate, cost. And it's making a lot of money because of its, strategy. Okay. You can use differentiation. You can also be a cost leader. You can also be using the focus strategy. But when you use hello, are you there?
Sorry, Professor, just someone
Okay.
forgot
So it all
to
depends on
unmute
what
his,
strategy you want. Hello.
Yes, I'm hearing you. Thank you,
Yes.
Prof. Thank you
So
very much.
if people are not buying, then you should know that you have a problem with the pricing system, your pricing strategy. And that is what you have to look at. Okay. That is a major thing that you need to look at. If you have a situation where people are not buying from you, people can't or don't have the means to do that. Okay. And companies can also ensure that they have smaller packages for people or countries where people cannot buy expensive things. So it all depends on the company. Okay. And you need to look at it, where you are, where you operate from. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
I think Amin has a question.
Okay.
Amin?
Thank you for your presentation, Prof. Sam. We have some questions related to finance.
Is the person asking a question? I can't hear at all.
Can you hear me?
Amin, could you speak up because we don't hear you?
Hello, can you hear me? Wow.
We still cannot hear you. I think you have some problems with your mic. Okay, so you can just
Another
type your
problem.
question in the chat because we cannot hear you. There is another question from Umayma. She asked, "What do you think? Do you think that companies will be more will collaborate more in the future to make positive impact after this pandemic, or will be always about profits?"
Um, Let me take the second leg of the question. Profits, fine. That sustains your business. But now people are talking about values, okay? It's not so much about the money that you make that would really create the basis for people to like your company. It's all about the values. And that is why companies which tend to really concentrate on more money might be losing out in terms of others who really value what people really want to have. What I'm trying to say is that yes, profits are important, okay? But it doesn't mean that that should be your sole, kind of objective. What is important is how people perceive you to be. If people realize that you are a very good company, the tendency is that they would always want to buy from you. But if they realize that you are that type of company which is so much profit oriented, then they might change. They might not want to deal with it because they might see something very, very peculiar about it. Now, people want to see companies being part of the community in which they operate in. People want to see companies, performing their societal functions, their obligations, and so on and so forth. But when you have a company which doesn't want to put any money aside for the development of its community and rather sticks to its profits kind of mantra, it's not going to help that company at all. It's about values. It's about companies realizing that they make so much from the communities in which they operate from, and therefore they need to give back to society some of the money that they make. If they don't do that, then people could have problems with them. They might not be able to have what we call the social license for them to operate within the said communities. Even though you might have the legal basis to operate as a company, you still need what we call the social license. The social license is something that comes from the community in which you operate in. Because if you don't get that social license, that is to say people don't really like you, then they might pose a problem to you. They might really create problems for your activities, for your operations. And that is why values are important, more important than what profits are. And now companies are talking about values more than anything. Yes.
So she has another question. Do you think the responsibilities of corporate social responsibility will be more thought with all the challenges in the future?
I think so. I strongly believe so. Now companies are out there trying to tell the world that they care. And that is the basis of having a social responsibility, corporate social responsibility. The whole idea is to tell people that, look, we know we operate in your community, and therefore, whatever money we make, it's because of you that we make the money. So we are prepared to help you. We are prepared to offer scholarships to people within the community. We are prepared to develop your community because that is where we make our money from. And any company that does not really have the basis to develop or to provide a basis for communities to really get something from them is always bound to fail. Trust me. Trust me. That is what it is. And that is why corporate social responsibility has become a very important, issue among businesses worldwide. And now you have places where they have designated CSR officials, just making sure that they work towards a situation where people can always, see their businesses as quite, something quite else, okay, that society can really relate to. It's very, very important now. Very, very important.
Okay, thank you, Professor. Amin, could you just try again and ask your question?
Hello, Prof. Can you hear me? Hello.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Thank you, Prof, for your presentation. I have some questions related to finance because I work both on machine learning and financial risk.
Okay.
Firstly, can we consider that the COVID-19 from an economic point of view as the subprime crisis? And especially if we look what's going on in America now today, and what is the impact of all of this on companies' business? First, secondly, is the pandemic COVID-19 created new financial risk beyond the traditional risks? If yes, what kind of financial product can we offer to deal with these risks? Because in the subprime crisis, for example, financial analysts create derivatives to protect little bit companies from some risks. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. The question is, why are we in recession at all? What is happening to our economies? Right? Why is all these stock exchanges in turmoil? That is a key thing that we need to look at. Are we doing anything that we've never done before? And what sort of response do we have? So clearly, I think we are really under pressure. Okay, we are having a situation which nobody seems to have an answer to. Okay, what we are doing is just finding a means to survive one day and then trying to figure out what could happen the next day. All right. At this moment, even though we have this economic stimulus packages, even how they are going to be dispersed is another issue. Who gets what, how, and when? Okay, how do we kickstart the economy? What should we do to enable us to get to the point where we want to be? We don't seem to have the answers at all. We don't seem to have the answers at all. And I don't know what could be done to really generate this sort of thing. We've talked, but until such time that we get rid of this, we can't really make any formal or make any, how should I even put it? We can't advance to the point where we would want to be. Okay, a lot of these countries are in recession. Germany, of all places, the UK. If all these countries are having problems financially and otherwise, what happens to other developing countries at all? Who is going to help them? So we are indeed in a crisis, and nobody knows what could happen the next day. That is what is happening. That is what is happening throughout. Do you think there's a way out? And if so, what can be done? It's always the kind of thing that we reflect on, trying to figure out what we should do and whether what we are going to do will be sufficient enough for us to have that kickstart. The other day, I was trying to figure out, I checked from where I am. Normally, I like to transfer my money if it comes through. So I realized that it was, I think, 10,000 ringgit to, it was about 1,877 pounds. And then within 2 weeks, it's gone down to, I think, 1,822. What is happening? Speculation, right? Because there seem to be no agreements, the UK and then the EU having problems, so that has affected that. And these are some of the things that really work against anything that you might want to do. What is the housing situation out there? The US went through a lot as a result of that. After it gave out a lot of monies to people, okay? People bought houses they couldn't even pay for, and that created a lot of mess in the world. And we might experience these sort of things. But I'm not saying it could happen. It might, okay? But we don't know yet. This sort of problem has really created so many issues for us. And until we have the right solutions, we might still be in that kind of state where we could still have problems. The UK, for instance, is still having issues with regard to the number of people who have applied for unemployment benefits. The same with the US. And what does that tell you? They have to raise the taxes of people. Those who are prepared to work, those who have jobs, they have to pay more in order to ensure that the monies can cater for people who don't have any job to do. And when you have a situation like this, unemployment situation goes up. Look at the social consequences of all that. So it throws an entire nation into a lot of issues, a lot of problems. So for now, it's so hard to really pinpoint what exactly is going to happen. But at least we can see for sure that things are not really what they should be. Okay?
So thank you, Professor. I think there are no more questions. I would like to thank you on behalf of everyone here today for your time and for agreeing to speak to us today on this very important topic. Your insights and comments regarding this crisis and marketing as a marketing specialist were very inspiring for our PhD scholars. As you see, the discussion was so good. So once again, thank you for your contribution to today's webinar. We count on you on supporting and guiding our PhD students. So thank you very much.
Thank you, and it's been lovely. With the questions that you threw out to me. They were very good questions, I must admit, and I believe strongly that you're doing a great job out there where you are. It's been lovely, having you around me, and thank you so much for having the patience to hear what I had for you. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Professor.
Thank you.
Okay. I hope to meet you again one day. Okay.
Yes, soon in the campus, inshallah, Morocco.
Okay. Thank you. Bye for now.